It's disrespectful how long I just made everyone wait. 20 minutes? It's never my intentions to do that. I get I get lost in the gardening if you're picking up what I'm putting down. I usually only mean to be like 10 minutes at the most. Shit happens, I guess. Hold on, excuse me. We got a snow day. Poor parents. Poor parents gotta deal with a snow day. Boo hoo hoo. It'd be like that. Well, as promised, we're gonna do our history stream tonight. Uh, last time we read page 17. Well, we started at the second paragraph of page 17. I guess we'll read what we have in our notes. Joseph Smith of London has, after many years of labor, collected, arranged, and published a large majority of the titles to these. Which I didn't put what they were. Quaker writings. March 18th, 1673, Lord Berkeley conveyed to Fenwick a portion of New Jersey for £1,000 in sterling and a royalty of 40 beaver skins annually. I guess one thing that I want to try to find out in stone at some point is. Shit. My bad. Testing. Alright. One thing I want to find out in stone is who paid the £1,000. And I'm writing that down now. Because Fenwick was used as. I forget what the word is. It might be in here. An agent. He might have been used as an agent. Billings wanted to buy West Jersey from Berkeley, but he was in trouble, or he owed people money because he didn't pay his fines. for all being persecuted for being a Quaker and refused to pay the fines, started riots. We'll read all this. So he used Fenwick to buy it. Like, I can't buy this, put this in your name type of situation. So was it Edward Byllynge's money that he gave to Fenwick to buy it and just have it in his name? Or was it Fenwick who used his own actual money to buy it? Because I think that that's obviously what the big dispute is. Because all along, one thing's clear is Fenwick had his own aspirations and dreams for West Jersey. I want to know what 42 beaver skins a year. I want to know what they use beaver skins for. I can't spell beaver. In the 1600s, beaver skins were used to make hats, coats, muffs, collars, and garment linings. Beaver pelts were expensive and fashionable, and only the wealthiest people could afford them. Beaver hats were popular in Europe from 1550 to 1850. Top hats. Smaller beaver hats were sometimes called beaverkins. Beaver pelts were worn as clothing with the fur still on to keep warm. They were used as linings for capes and coats. They were sewed into collars to keep necks and shoulders warm. Beaver felt was a key material in the European hat industry until the 1830s. The beaver trade connected the North American and European markets. The beaver trade also enriched the shipping industries of the Atlantic world. The most popular use for beaver pelts was in hats. The kind of hats people wore then are not very popular today, but in the 1600s, a person's hat showed their status. A wealthy person wore a fancy and expensive hat. Beaver pelts were very expensive, and only the richest people in Europe could afford to wear them. (1684), Edward Byllynge tried at, what was it, Guild? Yeah. Wait. Guild Hall, London, for attending a meeting at White Hart Court. Created a riot, found guilty, fined 4 nobles, and he never paid it. Edward Billing also wrote the concessions and agreements with William Penn. That was in 1676. And he was the first governor of West Jersey, 1680 to 1687. But he never went to Jersey. Never stepped foot on any of his land. Anyway, that was a tangent. All right, so this is what we read last time. We'll read it again and just keep going through to page 18 because we're doing page 18 today. March 18th, 1673, John Lord Berkeley conveyed to John Fenwick his undivided moiety. No. Moiety. We looked this word up last time. The T sounds like a D. Moiety. His undivided moiety of New Caesarea or New Jersey for the sum of £1,000 sterling and a royalty of 40 beaver skins annually. This grant had upon its surface the appearance of good faith and that of a bona fide transaction, yet it was scarcely executed before its intention was suspected and its validity endangered. Edward Byllynge, it's pronounced Billing, and it's spelled a million different ways. A friend and associate of the grantee at once became an important and conspicuous personage in these transactions to the exposure and defeat of the plans well matured. And doubtless to his chagrin, we looked this one up too. Chagrin and discomfiture. He was born in 1628, a resident of Westminster, London, where he carried on the business of brewer. In the latter years of his life, he lived in the parish of St. Botolph, but that was actually, he misspelled that. We found oh shit, I don't think I wrote it down. Refer back to the last episode of, not the Hangout Sesh, the one before, the last episode of the history shit. Because that place, Batoff, it's not spelled or pronounced that way. That's what that says, Batoff. But that's not right. Aldgate, part of the same city, and died the 16th of the 11th month in 1686. 11th month. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. Yeah. January 16th, 1686. Come on. January 1686. I guess I should mention that. If you listen to the last episode, we talk all about it, but before 1752, the Quakers used a different calendar. So the first month of the year was March. New Year's was March 25th. And they didn't use the months' names because, as we know, months' names are derived from what the Quakers called pagan gods. Pagan gods. So anyway, that's how they would say. They wouldn't say the 16th of January. They always used a number. Roman numeral or Arabic numeral. He served as an officer in the army of the Commonwealth, and while in Leith in Scotland was convinced of the correctness of the doctrines of George Fox. That's the father of Quakerism, if you will, by his preaching. He had been living apart from his wife, but was induced to receive her again, and they afterwards lived happily ever after. Happily ever after. Happily together here. This probably subjective. But it was George Fox that actually helped them resolve whatever differences they had in their marriage. I think they died. He passed away with them still being married together. He published several pamphlets in behalf of the Friends between 1659 and 1665, all of which were printed in London. In 1684, with others, he was tried at Guildhall, London, for attending a meeting at White Hart Court and creating a riot. He was found guilty and fined 4 nobles, which he refused to pay, and in that default was sent to Newgate Prison for 3 weeks. I want to look up Newgate Prison to see if that's, like, we can still find the building or ruins. He became involved in his financial affairs and, to avoid the payment of his debts, procured the above-named conveyance to be made to John Fenwick, the purchase being with funds furnished by himself. So he says that... See, I don't know what that means. I have one. It tells me I have one viewer in here. I don't know if I do or not, but if you are in here, tell me real quick, please. Tell me what you think this means. The above named conveyance to be made to John Fenwick, the purchase being with funds furnished by himself. So is he saying that Fenwick paid, or he paid the money? The number of his creditors and the amount of his debts led to close inquiry in regard to his estate, and it was discovered that he was interested in this transaction, designed to defraud them in their just demands. The position in which Fenwick and Byllynge found themselves was not an enviable one, and soon brought about much bitter controversy. These criminal criminations these criminations were not only made between Byllynge and his creditors, but Fenwick and he had quarreled as to the interests of each in the estate conveyed. Much notoriety, much notoriety, Jesus Christ, much notoriety was given to it, but all parties being friends, the contest was kept within control of the society and settled according to the rules of the same. John Fenwick was then a resident of Binfield in Berkshire, a small town near Windsor Castle and about 30 miles from the city of London. See, he got in 1684. This is like way after the fact. This is when he went to prison for the 3 weeks. 1684, it says in 1684 with others he was tried at Guildhall, London for attending a meeting at White Hart Court and created a riot. That's like 4 years before he died. Anyway. Because I think he was first New Jersey governor. Yeah, they always say William Livingston because they start at the moment that the it's going to give me the runaround. They start at William Livingston because he was the first governor when New Jersey ratified, whatever the I don't know that word, the Constitution. Philip Carteret, which was, I forget if he was the brother, son, grandson to Sir George Carteret. But Edward Byllynge was actually the first governor of West Jersey. No. Very annoying. See, they want you to know what they want you to know. Super annoying. Now look, first governor of West New Jersey. Burlington was the capital. August 1680 to 1687. He was succeeded by Daniel Cox the third, and he wasn't liked very much as the governor. Byllynge was an unpopular governor with the settlers of New Jersey. He never even stepped foot on the tract of land he owned. In 1682, Byllynge was one of the 24 proprietaries who owned a piece of West New Jersey. So, that caught my eye because this is 1684. He was a governor at the time. I wonder if we can find Guildhall, London, 1684 trials. Trial transcripts. Proceedings of the Old Bailey. Newgate. Okay, anyway. This is way after. That he's like jumping around here a little bit actually because 1684 would have been way. John Fenwick founded Salem in 1675. By like 1680, I think like close to 1,000 people. I don't know really what the number was. I know Fenwick got here. It took some time to get some shit squared away, and then a couple years later, after all the William Penn shit got figured out, William Penn figured everything out. Other ships started coming, because I know the first ship was the Griffin, and that's why Griffin Street is named Griffin Street in Salem. There's a lot of I had a glass that had the Griffin on it. or the kind of ship that the Griffin was. And I know the second ship was I think the Kent, something like that. So that's like way at 1684. That is way after, and that's crazy. He was still getting in trouble, still getting persecuted as a Quaker. If I were him, I would have just went to America with the rest of them. What was I about to look up? Oh, first ship to West Jersey. According to historical records, the first ship to arrive in West Jersey was the Kent, which carried a group of Quaker settlers in 1677, establishing the Burlington County. This marked the beginning of a significant English settlement in the region. That's not true. Yo, Google AI is like not doing good tonight. And this is kind of scary because hella people send me screenshots of the AI overview on Google to prove their points about shit, and like people really believe in this shit. Again, wrong. Let's see. Fenwick embarked with his family in the ship Griffin, accompanied by several other friends, to take possession of the land assigned him. They landed at a pleasant, rich spot on the river Delaware, where they commenced a settlement to which he gave the name of Salem. This was the first English ship that came to the western part of New Jersey, and none followed for nearly 2 years. In the meantime, Edward Byllynge, becoming embarrassed in his circumstances, was desirous to transfer to his creditors his interest in the territory, being the only means he had to satisfy their claims. At its earliest entreaty, Penn consented to be associated as joint trustee with two of the creditors. Not important. Penn's whole goal was to just have it all. I'm trying to see if it says anything about the second ship. But it was after they figured all that shit out. Because there's a number I'm looking for. Okay, in the year 1677 and 1678, 5 vessels sailed for the province of West New Jersey with 800 immigrants, most of them members of Society of Friends. Among the first purchasers were 2 companies of friends, the one from Yorkshire, the other from London, who each contracted for a large tract of land. They came with other passengers, numbering in all 230 in the ship Kent, which arrived at Newcastle. Newcastle's cool as shit. We should probably look that up. Me and my kids, my family, we go there all the time. Let's see, the 16th of the 6th month, September. And proceeding up the Delaware, landed at Raccoon Creek, where the Swedes had some scattering habitations, but too few in number to accommodate them all, so that many had to take up their abode in stables or erect huts in the Indian fashion. I forget what Raccoon Creek is called now. It might actually still be called that, just with different spelling or maybe slightly different pronunciation. Uh, but it says where the Swedes had some scattering habitations. Swedesboro, in that area, up there past Oldman's Creek. Um, let's see. The commissioners proceeded up the river to a place where Burlington now stands, which was then called Chagos Island. Okay. AI is wrong. How did we get there anyway? Anyway. But the way he writes this, it kind of makes it sound like that happened before. Like it, and he doesn't. I think it's a little bit misleading. But who am I to criticize this great mind here? Where did we leave off? Oh, that's what I wanted to write. At this time, it doesn't give a date. I'm gonna say 1675 because that's so far the date we found when the transaction of West Jersey happened. I have a feeling though it was like 74 or 73, probably. But for now, we'll just say 1675 question mark. Fenwick resided at Binfield in Berkshire. It is possible he had returned to his profession and was the legal advisor of Byllynge in the disposition of his estate to avoid the payment of his debts. Ooh, okay. Fenwick could have been Edward Byllynge's lawyer. In this originated with John Fenwick the idea of planting a colony in America, of becoming the head of a great enterprise and gratifying his ambition. Here was the conception, and here it was. Here was the conception, and here it was made to germinate and develop its attractions. How tenaciously this idea was adhered to and what was accomplished have long since become matters of history. As a means of adjusting the existing difficulty, William Penn was chosen as arbitrator and discharge the duty faithfully to all concerned. What's this word mean? Tenaciously. Tenaciously. I did pretty good with that one. With a firm hold of something closely in a determined or unwavering manner. Newgate Prison, London. Old Bailey. Okay. Newgate Prison was a prison at the corner of Newgate Street and Old Bailey, just inside the city of London. There it is in 1810. Can you see that? Originally at the site of Newgate. Newgate was one of the historic 7 gates of the London Wall around the city of London, and one of the 6 which date back to Roman times. Newgate lay on the west side of the wall, and the road issuing from it headed over the River Fleet to Middlesex and Western England. A gate in the Roman London Wall. The London Wall is a defensive wall first built by the Romans around the strategically important port town of Londinium in 200 AD. It was demolished in 1904. Built in the 12th century. The prison was extended and rebuilt many times and remained in use for over 700 years, from 1188 to 1902. In the late 18th century, executions by hanging were moved here from the Tyburn gallows. I think Colonel Hunks, if that's his name. See if I can find him real quick. Yep. Tyburn gallows. October 19, 1660. Colonel Hunks, one of the guys who signed, or he actually had his name forged by Oliver Cromwell on the King Charles I execution warrant. And he actually would have been given immunity with everyone else, but they fucking found the actual physical original execution warrant with his name on it in his possession, and they were like, yeah, you gotta go. God damn, they did the executions and, well, that's not crazy because they cut the king's head off in front of everyone. These took place on the public street in front of the prison, drawing crowds until 1868 when they were moved into the prison. Yeah, the Old Bailey. Courthouses. Henry II instituted legal reforms that gave the crown more control over the administration of justice. Prison was destroyed in the Great Fire of London in 1666 and was rebuilt in 1672. How do I get out of this? Okay, there we go. Newgate Exercise Yard, 1872. What is this? Elevation and Plan of Newgate Prison, published in 1800. Prison Chapel. Goddamn, execution by hanging outside Newgate, early 1800s. A door from the prison, 1780, now in the collection of the Museum of London. The second Newgate Prison, a west view of Newgate, 1810. (1896). Newgate Execution Bell, now in the church. Let's see, executions. In 1783, the site of London's gallows were moved from Tyburn to Newgate. Public executions outside the prison. By this time, London's main prison continued to draw large crowds. It was also possible to visit the prison by obtaining a permit from the Lord Mayor of the City of London or a sheriff. Damn. 1807. Okay, wait. Dense crowds of thousands of spectators could pack the streets to see these events. And in 1807, dozens died at a public execution when part of the crowd of 40,000 spectators collapsed into a crowd crush. In November 1835, James Pratt and John Smith were the last two men to be executed for sodomy. Holy shit. Well, sometimes history takes a wild turn. James Pratt, also known as John Pratt and John Smith, were two British men who in November 1835 became the last people to be executed for sodomy in England. I hate that I know that this was probably the technical term that they were charged with, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but when you keep using words like this, you make it sound like they did something wrong. They didn't do that. Well, as we'll keep reading, I bet. Last people to be executed for sodomy in England. Pratt and Smith were arrested in August of that year after being spied on through a keyhole, allegedly having carnal knowledge of each other in a room rented by William Bunnell, a friend or acquaintance of one of the men, or possibly both. Bunnell, although not present when the men were spied on, was nevertheless transported to the Austria. Between 1788 and 1686. No, 1868. The British penal system transported about 162,000 convicts from Great Britain and Ireland to various penal colonies in Australia. So, damn, the friend wasn't even there. He was transported to Australia as an accessory to Pratt and Smith's alleged crime, where he died. Some modern human rights activists have cast doubt on the facts and legality of the conviction. In January 2017, Pratt and Smith were among those who were posthumously pardoned by the Alan Turing Law. Alan Turing, that's a whole nother turn. Poor man. The government castrated him for being gay. I don't know how, because I'm not smart in this area, but they credit Alan Turing with being like the true father of AI, although AI did not exist at the time. I don't know if he was before his time or he made all the calculations that would be later used to make AI. Somehow he gets credited with being the father of AI. And the government castrated him. I think he ended up killing himself. I'm sorry. I don't even know. I'm really sorry if I use words that are offensive or sensitive or hurtful to anyone. I'm learning as I go on what to say and not to say and how to say things. I do like calling things what they are, though, sometimes, because I just think that it's just better if we just do that. Like here, they weren't executed for sodomy, they were executed for being gay. For having a romantic and intimate relationship with each other. And that's what it should say. was pardon those who have been convicted of same-sex carnal offenses, which no longer exists in the UK. William Bonnell, age 68, had lived for 13 months in a rented room at a house near the Blackfriars Road, Southwark, London. His landlord stated that Bonnell had frequent male visitors who generally came in pairs, and that his suspicions became aroused on the afternoon of the 29th of August, 1835, when Pratt and Smith came to visit Bonnell. The landlord climbed to an outside vantage point in the loft of the nearby stable building, where he could see through the window of Bonnell's room, before coming down and looking into the room through the keyhole. Both the landlord and his wife later claimed they both looked through the keyhole and saw Pratt and Smith engaging in carnal relations with each other. The landlord, after seeing what he saw, broke open the door to confront them. Bonnell was absent but returned a few minutes later with a jug of ale. The landlord went to fetch a police constable, and all three men were arrested. Pratt, Smith, and Bonnell were tried on 21st of September 1835 at the Central Criminal Court. Central Criminal Court before Baron Gurney, a judge who had the reputation of being independent and acute, but also harsh. Pratt and Smith were convicted under Section 15 of the Offenses Against the Person Act 1828, which had replaced the 1533 Buggery Act, and were sentenced to death. William Bonnell was convicted as an accessory and sentenced to 14 years of penal transportation. A number of witnesses came forward to testify to the good character of Pratt. No character witnesses came forward to testify on behalf of Smith. The conviction of three men rested entirely on what the landlord and his wife claimed to have witnessed, and the evidence of the police constable who had examined the clothing of both men after his arrival at Bonhill's lodging house. Modern commentators have cast doubts on their testimony based on the narrow field of vision afforded by keyhole in the acts. Some anatomically impossible. The couple claimed to have witnessed during the brief length of time they were looking. But what's the matter? I'm like, why would someone care so much to find out whether or not their testimony was true or not? Let's just say it was true. Who cares? Man, uh There was an appeal for mercy submitted by the men's wives that was heard by the Privy Council. A petition for mercy was even made by the landlord and his wife, the ones who got them convicted, who had been witnesses against him. But they guess they didn't care. Pratt and Smith were hanged in front of Newgate Prison on the morning of 27th of November. The crowd of spectators was described in the Times newspaper report as larger than usual. This was possible because the hanging was the first to have taken place at Newgate in nearly 2 years. The report of the execution in the Morning Post states that when the men were led into the scaffold, the crowd began to hiss, and this continued until the moment of their execution. Possibly this indicated the crowd's disagreement with the execution, or it may have indicated disapproval of the men's alleged acts. Pratt was reportedly too weak to stand and had to be held upright by the executioner's assistants while preparations were made to hang him. The event was sufficiently notable for a printed broadside to be published and sold. This described the men's trial and included the purported text of a final letter that was claimed to have been written by Smith to a friend. Bunnell was one of 290 prisoners transported to Australia on the ship Asia, which departed England on the 5th of November in 1835 and arrived in Van Diemen's Land, now Tasmania, on 21st February 1836. Bunnell died at the age of 74 at the New Norfolk Hospital in Van Diemen's Land on 29th April 1841. Tasmania. I wonder if that was before or after. Let's see. I think I'm going to say like 1830s. Nah. 1890s. I'm going to say like in the 1890s, the very last Tasmanian man was alive before that race went that culture went extinct. The last Tasmanian man. What year did the last Tasmanian man pass away? 1869. William Lanny is considered the last full-blooded Tasmanian Aboriginal man, and his death in 1869 is widely recognized as marking the end of the Tasmanian Aboriginal population. William Lanny, also known as King Billy. Laney was born into the indigenous Tarkiener clan. Tarkiener clan of remote northwestern Tasmanian. Let's look this up and see. If, just out of love and respect. Tarkeen? Tarkeen? Chicaner. Tricaner? That ain't the... No, that ain't even the right word. Tarkeen. Clan of the remote northwestern Tasmania. Around 1836, he probably belonged to the last Aboriginal family group which was living a traditional lifestyle on mainland Tasmania after the policies of the colonial British government had either killed or removed almost the entire remaining Aboriginal population. In December 1842, Laney's family group, which included his father and mother, his 4 brothers, and himself as a young child, made contact at Arthur River with employees of the Van Diemen's Land Company, which had an extensive land grant in the region. His father answered to the name of Lana or Lani, and this was the surname that was applied to the whole family. The Lani family were quickly shipped off to Aboriginal internment camp at Wyballina on Flinders Island, where around 180 other Tasmanian Aboriginal people were exiled after their forced removal from the mainland. At Wyballina, Lani was given the English first name of William and was reunited with his adolescent sister Victoria, who had been taken by sealers before being sent to Flinders Island. The establishment of Wyballina was poorly maintained and riddled with sickness. The previously healthy family rapidly succumbed to infectious respiratory diseases. Lonnie's father, mother, and 2 of his brothers died within a year of their arrival. His sister Victoria gave birth to a boy named George before she also died in 1847 along with another of his brothers. Victoria's skeleton is believed to have been later dug up from the Wyballina cemetery and sold for the modern equivalent of £3,000 to the Royal Belgian Institute of Natural Sciences, where her remains are still located. In 1847, the 47 surviving Aboriginal people at Wyballina were transferred to an equally unhealthy facility at Oyster Cove on mainland Tasmania. This group included William Laney, his brother Charlie, and his infant nephew George. Charlie was given to a local settler and was never heard of again. George died around 1852. William was sent to an orphanage in Hobart, where he lived a miserable existence until 1853, when he was returned to Oyster Cove. William was the only child from Wyballina who survived to adulthood. At the Oyster Cove Aboriginal establishment, Lonnie was adopted by fellow Indigenous survivors, Walter George Arthur and his wife Marianne Robinson. He was a whaler. Lonnie had a good-humored personality, was well-spoken and admired among the Hobart community. He is recorded as advocating for improving the living arrangements of the women at Oyster Cove settlement by writing to colonial officials in 1864. He formed a relationship with Truganini and was generally regarded as being her spouse during this period. Who is that? Oh, okay. She was uh was a woman famous for being widely described as the last full-blooded Aboriginal Tasmanian to survive British colonization, although she was one of the last speakers of the indigenous Tasmanian languages. Oh, he was introduced as the king of the Tasmanians. Oh, he was only 33 when he passed. Oh. Whoa. Yo, tonight took a wild turn, man. After returning from a whaling voyage on the Runnymede, which had been operating in the southern Pacific Ocean, Lonnie was paid off and went to live at the Dog and Partridge Hotel at the corner of Goulburn and Baroque Streets in Hobart Town. Lonnie died there 2 weeks later on the 3rd of March, 1869, from a combination of alcohol poisoning, cholera, and he was around 33 years old. Following his death, Lonnie's body was mutilated and dismembered as part of a dispute between the Royal College of Surgeons and the Royal Society of Tasmania over who should possess his remains. A member of the Royal College of Surgeons named William Crowther applied to the government for permission to obtain and send the skeleton to the college's headquarters in London, which his request was denied. Crowther ignored this decision and managed to break into the Hobart morgue where Lonnie's body was kept. He dissected the corpse, removing Lonnie's skull and replacing it with the skull of Thomas Ross, a recently deceased white school teacher whose body was also in the morgue. However, Sir James Agnew and George Stockwell from the Royal Society of Tasmania soon discovered Crowther's work and decided to thwart any further attempts by Crowther to collect samples by amputating Lonnie's hands and feet. After cutting off Lonnie's appendages, Stockwell gave them to his associate John Woodcock Graves, who stuffed them in his pockets as he left the morgue. Lonnie's funeral occurred the next day at St. David's Church. It was organized by his whaling company employer, who had his coffin draped in a possum-skinned rug with spears placed on top. The captain of the Runnymede and 3 of Lonnie's shipmates were pallbearers, and they carried his casket to the church cemetery where it was interred. The following morning, it was discovered that Lonnie's grave had been dug up and the remaining parts of his corpse had been removed. Thomas Ross's skull, which had been inserted in Lonnie's head, was found discarded amongst the other headstones. Ross's skull was placed into Lonnie's empty coffin and re-interred. An inquiry was quickly organized into the death of Lonnie's body, but was abandoned for political reasons. Stokel accused Crowther of stealing the corpse. Crowther, on the other hand, claimed he went to the hospital with a police escort, where he found Stokel removing Lonnie's bones from his corpse in an indecent manner in which messes of fat and blood were all over. Because he was accused of theft of Lonnie's head and the illicit use of another white person's head, Crowther's is it Crowther's? I'm gonna go Crowther's honorary appointment as surgeon at the Colonial Hospital was terminated. Yet in 1869, the Council of the Royal College of Surgeons awarded him a gold medal in the first fellowship of the college ever awarded to an Australian. Crowther later became Premier of Tasmania. Crowther claimed that because Lonnie had lived much of his life within the European community, his brain had exhibited physical changes, demonstrating the improvement that takes place in a lower race when subjected to the effects of education and civilization. Other colonists took note of Crowther's act. A fracas occurred outside the council chamber, Hobart Town, a few nights ago. Mr. Crowther, member of Hobart Town, threatened his colleague, Mr. Kinnerly, with personal violence because of the latter's allusion to Mr. Crowther's alleged abstraction of the last Aboriginal's head. Mr. Kinnerly called the attention of the House to the circumstance, and Mr. Crowther was reprimanded. Crowther, it seems, retained Laney's skull, which was probably donated to the Anatomy Department of the University of Edinburgh in 1888 by his son, Dr. Edward Crowther. The rest of Laney's skeletons appears most likely to have been retained in the Royal Society of Tasmania's museum. In the early 1990s, the University of Edinburgh repatriated a skull to the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre, believed to be that of William Lonnie. However, it is disputed that this was in fact Lonnie's skull. It is possible that Lonnie's skeleton was also given to the TAC for cremation in a batch of ancestral remains returned by the Royal Society around the same time. Whew. That was heavy. That was heavy. We got that from Newgate Prison. Edward Byllynge was sent to Newgate Prison for 3 weeks for not paying his fines, for being a bad boy, for being a Quaker. I'll be right back. What a wild ride. I'm glad you guys just experienced that with me, though. Because when you hear me talking about going down bunny trails on my podcast, that's what I'm talking about. One thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. That makes you remember this other thing that leads you to that. Newgate Prison. Edward got sent there. It was a shitty environment. Really shitty prison experience for prisoners. Last two men executed at Newgate. For being gay. Their landlord, who wasn't even there at the alleged crime, got sent to Diamonds, DIEMEN, company, Tasmania, which led us to looking up the last full-blooded Aboriginal Tasmanian man. And that's just a really tragic story. Okay. Let's see. Benfield, Berkshire. Okay, Benfield is a village and civil parish in Berkshire. So this is where Fenwick was apparently living right before he came to America. Oh, I don't want to go there. Okay. I'll be honest, I'm kind of whooped after all that. We did finish the page, so a little bit misleading on the way they framed this with the dating. Because without any like actual distinctions, they go from something that happened 10 years later into something that happened 10 years previous, and like there's no distinction. So it kind of like, if you didn't know, like if I didn't like just catch that by chance, and if you didn't know, like you would have thought that these two stories, like this, look, there's not even a separation in the paragraph. Like you would think that they were related, the situations were related to each other, but they weren't really at all. It almost tries to, I can't say that it tries to insinuate, but it does insinuate that uh that like his financial issues were kind of because of these like fines and stuff, or maybe that's just the way you take it if you just read over it quickly. um yeah, so this is Edward Billings had credit issues. I want to know why he was originally interested in Jersey. Okay, he was a Quaker. He was interested in Jersey because he got John Fenwick to get it. And then, but he never went. And he was still being persecuted in England. He never went to Jersey where his actual Quaker colony was, on tracts of land that he actually owned. All of that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I think Fenwick does claim that like those were his aspirations and that was his money. I don't know though. That's, we're getting too far ahead. But yeah, there's that. And of course, the whole situation, they didn't. They thought it would bring like a stain or shame to the Quaker like reputation if they ended up in court and had to bring in the legal system or the king or parliament, whatever. So they were trying really hard to deal with it within the religious body. Anyway, I'm getting out of here. Linktree/Ace4 to find all my content and all my podcasts and all my cool shit. Thanks for hanging with me today.